Believe me, it's easy. It's nothing difficult. Uh, Only if you have the right kind of strategy and guidance, right? And that's what is going to make the difference. And you'll understand that your own way, right? Now, we have broken down this webinar into four pillars, right? One is how to approach how to approach science and technology, right? That's one. Second is second is what areas does UPSC repeatedly focuses on, right? And next is how to connect current affairs with concepts. I'm sure you can see my screen, right? And the last is how to avoid overstudying. Yes, these are the four things that we'll be discussing, right? And we'll try and understand how can you best align yourself? How can we best align ourselves um, with the demands of the exam so that you don't have to do a lot of work to get good marks, but you might have to do some effort, and you will understand how that effort is to be required, how that effort is to be done by understanding these four question answers to these four questions, right? Okay. You all can see my screen, right? Don't tell me like half an hour later that the screen was not visible, right? Okay. Okay. How to approach science and technology, right? Now, this paper, this subject, um, weighs around 10%, right? So both in your prelims exam and mains exam, around 10% of the paper, 10% of the paper is directly or indirectly related to science and technology. So if you look at it, you might feel, that it's not 20%, 25%, right? So if you put 10% of the efforts over here, right, out of the 100% of the efforts that you get for the exam, let us assume it's 100%. Some of you will say it's 200%, right? If you say that if you give 10% of the efforts to science and tech, right, you will get these 10% marks in return, right? Okay, but I'll say that's not true, right? And if you're thinking that you have to give more efforts, I would say that you have to give less efforts for this subject, right? You have to give less efforts, maybe even 5% effort in this subject can still result in the same amount of marks. So this subject is designed in such a way that it can give you more marks with less effort, right? More marks with less effort. And at the end of the day in the exam, if you have to fight for marks, right, then this subject definitely makes a difference, because if you are not scoring marks in a scoring area, um, then you are losing out on the cutoff, whether it's prelims or mains. Okay, because a lot of science and tech is based entirely on concepts, right? That's why once you have the grasp of the concepts, that's the 5% effort, right? And that results in the marks that you get in each. All right. So if you look at it very simply, most of the things that I'm talking about are based on concepts, right? And I have derived this from the fact that 10% of your paper is based on S&T. If you look at the last 10 years, 15 years trends even, right? You'd find the same thing around 8 to 10, 8 to 12 questions in prelims and 2 to 4 questions in mains, your GS paper 3. Okay. Now that's one thing. That's to understand the trend and the pattern, right? When we talk about the approach, right? When we talk about the approach is quite similar to what you would follow for any other subject. And if you go and look at any of the topper talks, right, there are only 3 points that are being emphasized in different ways by everyone. All right. What are those 3 points? Now someone is saying, shall we go a little fast? And that's exactly what I'm coming to. Because the moment you think going fast is going to be productive, that's when you lose out on this exam. Right. And I'm going to be very clear on this. If you are thinking that discussions related to strategy, related to approach, are not the main focus for your preparation. And whatever content is, whatever the PYQs are, right? If you feel that this should be the main focus, right? And that's natural to feel, right? When when you're starting out in the preparation, because you have come out from from a mode of school level curriculum, when you are given certain books and you have to read those books out, and then you go in the exam and write whatever answers you have from those books, and you feel that that's where I need to know the exact books that I need to read for this exam. And every one of you would have this question in mind, which books to read, because that is the mindset that you have, right? So Pratap, when I'm going a little slow, I'm going a little slow to make you understand that this preparation needs you to slow down a little bit on your thinking, right? So that you can have a clear head for strategy. And unless you have a clear strategy and you go and run into this exam, you'll find yourself very confused, right? Surrounded by all kinds of materials, surrounded by all kinds of approaches, right? And that will make your life difficult. Okay. So our goal should be to make our life simpler, right? Right. So because we are in that zone, I'm I'm not signaling this to one individual. He was kind enough to mention that he wants us to be a little faster here, and that's the reason for that is that most of us are accustomed to watching short videos, getting instant gratification, and this exam demands the opposite. This exam requires patience, right? um, that is the most important thing that you will ask any UPSC aspirant who has cleared the exam. And if you look at their interviews, you'll find that that it has been years of preparation, and the best skill that they had was that they were patient. Um, so what I'm trying to say is that content comes secondary. Content becomes secondary, right? Your materials become secondary. Your approach becomes primary, right? That's the most important question to be dealt with. And we don't understand this fact because we come from that mindset. And unless you face this, right? Unless you face this, it is really difficult to make you understand by just telling you, right? If I'm telling you this, you would feel that, it's a very generic thing to say. But unless you actually face the exam and you face the difficulties, it will be difficult for you to understand. Right, it's very easy for me to just finish this in 15 minutes, what the approach is, but you will not take away anything. That, right? Now, if you talk about, if we come back to the approach, right? What I'm trying to say is any topper who has cleared the exam, right? They will be mentioning their approach in 3 points for any subject, and that same applies to science and tech with a little modification, right? And that little modification has to be done for every subject, and that's how you will find that you are able to get good marks in all those subjects. First is minimum sources. Okay. Now, suppose you have the pressure of reading 50 books, and you're going around being stressed, telling everyone that you have to study so hard for UPSC, which is partially true. Okay. And you're going around telling people, even flaunting that, I read 3 newspapers a day. I've read 10 books for science. None of that has actually helped you out, because this is not an exam of reading maximum number of books. Let us be very clear. Is this an exam where you have to win a competition at reading books, where you have to finish reading multiple articles, multiple newspapers? Is this an exam for that, or is this an exam which asks you to solve questions? Right? If you pause and think about it, I'm sure every one of you understands what this exam is going to be about, right? So if the exam is not about reading 100 books, then why do a lot of people emphasize on that? Well, it can be their interests, right? I'm saying, a lot of different institutes will also emphasize on reading multiple books, and that's exactly what is not required, right? Um, because that will confuse you even more, and the more you are confused, the more guidance you will need, right? In my view, you should only need guidance once, right? Once you have got the right guidance, after that, you should be preparing on your own, right? Because when you become a civil servant, you will get training only once, right? For becoming, you will posted as an ADM, then SDM, then as a DM. When you become an IAS, you'll get training once, and then you will be left to make your own decisions, right? No one is going to make decisions for you. You will be the one who has to make decisions, right? So if you cannot make a decision right now about what strategy or approach is going to be the best for you, right? That's going to be difficult for you when you become, IAS, and maybe you'll not become an IAS for that reason, right? So what I'm trying to say is, if someone is telling you read this, read that, um, read these many books, and you're constantly going back to them for guidance, right? Um, that's something that's going to cause harm to you, right? That's going to waste your time. You'll be finding that you're getting trapped in this spiral where you're making efforts, you're not getting any outcome. Does that happen when you're reading? When you're reading a lot of newspapers or a lot of books, and you find when you go and write the exam, you still don't have answers, or you still don't retain. Right? That happens, right? So that's why minimum sources are important. And for science and tech in particular, um, I emphasize on uh, my PPTs. Instead of my PPTs, if you have some other coaching notes, those notes, right? Along with along with just one newspaper every day, a monthly magazine, and a monthly magazine which has science and tech section. In my view, in my view, combination of this is more than enough for you to find answers in your exam, right? To get answers in your exam, this much is enough, right? Next point is that most of the toppers will talk about is maximum revision, right? Maximum revision. Now, if you have read everything, right? Um, that's good. But if you don't remember, those things, right? Then do you think it's going to be any of any use for you in the exam if you go and write, your exam? If you go and look at the questions, you might feel that you have read 10 books and you're still not able to recall things. So the second point that they would emphasize is maximum revision, right? Maximum revision. Pravalika is asking any particular magazines that can be used. You can use any kind of magazines from any of the coachings, right? Doesn't matter. What matters is that you're following some monthly magazine. Doesn't matter. Anyone you can follow, right? Um, then comes maximum revision, right? So you get maximum revision. What's the understanding of maximum revision? Revision will help you to retain. Okay. Then what is the third point? Most important. Consistent practice of MCQs. Consistent practice of MCQs. All right. So if you're practicing consistently, because at the end of the day, what the exam is going to ask you, they're going to ask you MCQs and they're going to ask you answer writing. MCQs and answer writing. Okay. So if the exam is about writing answers and practicing, I'm sorry, answering multiple choice questions, then you should be practicing this, right? Rather than practicing reading of books, right? The exam is not going to test you on reading of books, right? Someone is asking, should we read Down to Earth magazine? Up to you, really up to you, right? Um, so I'll tell you what. A lot of times this confusion is hard to settle. Let's be very honest, right? And sometimes what happens is people will take offense, and they will really not understand. And so it's just um, it's just good to what do you say, tell them what they want to hear. Sometimes what happens is people want to hear what they want to hear. So someone would want to hear that you have to read 30 books, you have to read this newspaper, that newspaper, this magazine, that magazine. So they will find this, and this happens a lot of times. Some of the people, they find this very odd. That this much is enough for the exam. It's very odd for them to understand. So that's why I'm saying that if you're feeling that you have to read Down to Earth magazine, what do you really have to read it for? Uh, are you reading it for science and tech? Well, you can cover those articles from monthly magazines as well. Are you reading this for improving your answers? Well, that may be helpful. Okay, in a way. And when we come to the answer writing approach for mains, then we can discuss this. So it really depends on what you want to read the magazine for, than the fact that if you're reading the magazine, something from the magazine will pop up in the exam, and you will for sure know the answer to that question, right? So if you are feeling that you're increasing your chances um, of having some information on the questions by increasing the number of sources, that's a wrong mindset to have for this exam. By increasing the number of sources, you're reducing the amount of content that you can keep in your mind, that you can retain in your mind, right? By increasing the number of questions you are practicing, you are increasing the chances of you understanding things and answering them in the exam. I hope I'm able to make you understand this difference, right? I'll stop at this point for any questions that you have, and tell me, really, have you understood this much? This and do you see any difference in what you used to think earlier and what you are thinking right now? Yes. Okay. So if you are having these three you know these three weapons in your armory, then really you are in the competition, right? Then you are in the competition, and then it's going to be easier for you to understand um, where you are lacking, how you can improve. Everything will come on its own when you are building your preparation on these three pillars, right? And I'll tell you what, the exact opposite of this, the exact opposite of this is what is being followed by every aspirant who starts out their preparation. The exact opposite is followed, right? Because of the understanding of the mindset, what everyone does is maximum sources with minimum revision and the lowest amount of practice. No one wants to see that they have given a test and they have not got good marks, even when no one else is watching. No one wants to give a test early or in their preparation. They will feel that if I get it wrong, what if I if I answer 10 questions and I don't get any of them correct. That's the fear that a lot of aspirants have, and that's why instead of the right hand side three pillars, the left hand side three pillars are the ones that are followed by most of the aspirants, right? When they start out preparation, right? All right. So let's talk about the approach for mains. For mains also the same approach remains, right? The same approach remains. And instead of MCQs, you will be practicing answer writing, right? And still the same approach and the same content, the same sources will be sufficient for you. All right. Okay. Someone is asking where can we attempt the MCQs from according to particular subjects. Well, again, you can attempt from any of the tests that are available online, right? Any of the tests that are available online, doesn't matter which test you're choosing from. Okay, you can attempt from anyone. um our UPSC essential batch has started, so over there what happens is that you have live lectures, right? There are live lectures, and apart from that you have recordings which are available. You have mentorship for 3 years, right? You have current affairs material which are available for 3 years, right? And you have a complete package. So if you're someone who wants to go from a beginner level preparation, right, to an advanced level preparation, this is the right course that you should be joining, where you'll get all these benefits, and you will also understand how to move on from beginner aspirant to someone who is actually in the competition on your own, right? So a lot of the strategies will be facilitated. And someone is asking for answer writing, I'll just answer. All right. So a lot of these things that we are discussing, it will actually be worked out when you are part of this course. All right. So let's continue. So we have already covered the approach. Someone is asking about answer writing. When should we start answer writing? Again, that's something that you should start as early as you can, right? When you have the basics of all the subjects, that's when you should start MCQs and answer writing, right? Whenever you're ready with the basics of all the subjects, go for MCQs and answer writing. All right. Now, the next question for us is, what areas does UPSC focus on repeatedly? Okay. All right. So there are some questions and approaches. Let me take those questions first, and then we can come to this topic. All right. The first question is coming from Ajit, right? Can you please suggest some sources to cover current affairs related to science and tech? Um, Current affairs sources. So you can refer to. I'm saying you can refer to any magazine, right? We also have a magazine. You can refer to our magazine. You can refer to PD365 if you want. You can refer to any other monthly magazine which has good content, right? Any monthly magazine. Um, so there is no specific coaching material that I prescribe. I just say you can either refer to our material, or at most if you want to go outside you can refer to PT365. That's also good. And there is no need for covering PIB articles and all those separately, right? Everything that you want will be there in the monthly magazines. Okay. Apart from that, things will be there for in the MCQ tests, right? So you don't need to go for those kind of requirements. Okay. Um, Shubham is saying, so I hope the current affair question is answered, Ajit, right? Then there's a question by Shubham. Sir, I've started reading the sources, but how many times I need to revise? Plus, there are rest of subjects as well. It feels a bit of complex to handle revision of multiple subjects. And that's exactly the problem that a lot of people will face. And that's, very good point made by Shubham, that revision might feel heavy, right? And that's natural, right? Because you want brain doesn't want to read the same thing again and again, right? You want something new, some new content. You don't want to be reading the same old content because then you will feel that you are not really moving forward, right? I hope I am able to understand you, Shubham, and also the others who will have the same kind of doubt. Okay, so you might feel that by revising you're not actually gaining anything, and that will happen when you are missing the third pillar, which is consistent practice, right? So when you start practicing questions, then you understand that revision is essential. So Shubham, have you been practicing questions, right? Have you been practicing questions? If you're practicing questions, then you will feel the revision to be lighter. Why? Because then your mind is curious because you made a mistake. So there was a question on bacteria. Well, I did not know about anaerobic fermentation. What is the anaerobic fermentation of bacteria? I don't know about it. Well, I saw that question in the exam. Now when I'm going and revising my notes, I know that there are some things related to biogas. There's something related to anaerobic fermentation. Let me have a look at it once again. Oh, this was related to production of biogas. Now I know. Now when I go back and give the test, I write the test and then I understand, okay, now apart from biogas, there's a term called syngas. What is syngas? Syngas might also be something that I need to look at. You go back and look at the notes at the newspapers, monthly magazines. Again, you find out that you have improved. So that's a cycle of improvement. That's a basic example I'm giving you of improvement. Instead of you, instead of you just reading your notes and feeling that go and write down these tests, and that will make you understand whether you really know or not, right? Whether you really know or not. You might have the perception about yourself that you know, right? But that perception might change when you actually go and do things. Okay. So Shubham, is it clear what you need to do? Okay. Someone is asking how to start preparing for mains. Should I prepare for mains first or the optional first? All right. So very simple. Very simple. Um, we talk specifically about mains because a lot of you might feel when you need to start the preparation. So once you have your basics clear, then start writing simple answers. Start writing simple answers. Okay, what do you mean by simple answers? Just simple questions. You can take any basic test series, right? Basic test series. In those simple answers, ensure that you get feedback on everything that you write. Feedback at everything you write. Okay, right? feedback of everything that you have to write. All right. And when you're taking the feedback, definitely your answers will be improving. Right. And we'll discuss more on this towards the end when we have further discussions. And let me complete the uh, whole thing first. So we'll come to this later because this will be covered in some way when we are discussing the other three pillars. Okay. So till now we have discussed the approach, and I hope the approach part is clear. At least the brief, the superficial idea is there in your minds, right? So let's go to what areas does UPSC focus on repeatedly? Okay, what areas does UPSC focus on repeatedly? Now, the syllabus can be divided into very simple, very simple 8 to 10 topics. Space tech, biotech. Biotech includes health. Okay, health. Then um, AI, IT, communications, and computers, right? Then nuclear technology, nanotechnology, okay, um, and miscellaneous technologies. All right. This is the simple breakdown of your syllabus, right? This is how your syllabus looks like for prelims. Okay, this is the syllabus for prelims. If I add IPRs and achievements of Indians in the field of science and technology, right? Then this becomes the syllabus for mains, right? So if this is number one, if I add one plus this topic, it becomes a syllabus for mains. All right, so this is a broad understanding of how your syllabus looks like. Okay. So from each topic, I can give you some certain understanding of what does actually UPSC focus on every year broadly. All right. So when you look at space technology, right? When you look at space technology, there are some basic terms related to space that are asked every year, right? That may be in news, right? Terms or concepts. So they can be terms like Goldilocks zone. So what is Goldilocks zone, right? This is your Goldilocks zone, right? So there can be questions on what is Goldilocks zone. It is the zone. It is the habitable zone around a star, right? So so if you have a star in the center like sun, then Goldilocks zone is somewhere where water will exist in liquid form, so it will be a habitable zone, which means life will be possible over there. Right. So this is a term that was asked earlier. Right. And there may be questions on concepts, right? So a question on theory of relativity, what is the concept? That was asked. Right. Concept of black holes. So all these are concepts that they are asking, right? So one thing is terms, then another thing is concepts. Then what else do they ask in space? They ask you about missions. Right? They are asking you about various missions. Missions of which organizations? ISRO, NASA, European Space Agency. Till now they have asked about these, but other important missions also should be covered by you. Right? Okay, so these are the main things that UPSC asks for space technology. Then if you look at the next one, which is biotechnology and health. Okay. Over there again, there are terms that are in news which are important. So anything, any term like biochar, biofilms, bioreactors, right? These are the terms that usually UPSC will ask, right? Apart from that, they will ask things related to your cells. The terms can be related to your cells also. Cells, actually, you can mention it as a separate topic because a lot of things on cells are asked. B cells, T cells, animal cells, plant cells, stem cells. Okay. Um, these are the kind of things that they will focus on. Then they will be focusing on um, some topics which are related to health. For example, and nutrition, right? Food, nutrition, food safety, nutrition, and diseases, right? So your questions on Zika virus have been asked, H1N1 have been asked, right? Questions on plant diseases have been asked, right? In health, your questions on food safety have been asked for, questions on adulteration, probiotics, antibodies, you know, all these are types of questions that are asked related to your health. All right. Okay, clear. If we go further on to the next one, says AI, IT, communication, and computers. Right. So what have they asked for this? Again, terms related to this and latest technologies. Latest technologies. So, for example, for AI, they have asked questions on drones, right? When it comes to IT, they had asked questions on 4G, 5G, right? When it comes to communication, all the different kinds of communication technology. If something is new is coming up, they will ask about that also. So kinds of communication technology like Wi-Fi, right? Like your visible light communication, right? Your near field communication, Bluetooth. So they have asked a lot about communication, right? Remote sensing technologies, radars, Aadhaar, Digital India, everything which is related to communication. Project Loon, a lot of questions related to communication have been asked. Then comes um, then comes the next one, which is nuclear and nano, right? Nuclear and nano. Very simply, very simply, here there are only two things that are asked, and this goes for both prelims and mains: concepts and applications, right? So any new concept related to nanotechnology or any new nanomaterial that has come up, and what are its applications? So carbon nanotube पे questions आए, graphene, right? Questions on thermal. I'm sorry, questions on nuclear fusion reactors, right? Questions on nuclear fission. They have all been asked. Okay, all right. Then in miscellaneous topics, there can be questions very related to things like materials or gases. There are n number of topics, right, that they can really ask as uh, miscellaneous questions. Defense technologies, okay. So a lot of different things. Okay. So they ask questions on materials like bisphenol, triclosan, questions on plastics, cement, right? All these have been asked. Why plastics? Again, they are asking it because plastic is a major contributor to climate change, right? So you need to understand that correlation also. All right. So this majorly answers what areas does UPSC focus on repeatedly, right? So as far as science and tech is concerned, I've given you the major pointers which you can refer whenever you're reading newspapers or whenever you're solving questions. If you're looking at these pointers in mind, right, then you will really be able to separate out irrelevant stuff. It will be very easy for you to separate out the irrelevant stuff and go only for the relevant stuff to read, right? And that will add value to your preparation. That will add value to your preparation. Instead of reading 100 books, this will add value to your preparation because you will know exactly what is going to be asked in the exam. Okay. Sources I've already mentioned, Richa. I've already mentioned the sources, right? From where these have to be covered, right? In the approach part, we have discussed this, right? So you can have your notes along with newspapers and one monthly magazine. Any monthly magazine will do, any newspaper will do, right? And when I say any, I mean any. It really doesn't matter whether you're reading Hindu or Indian Express or Mint or any other newspaper, doesn't matter. As long as you're reading a newspaper, you are in awareness of what is going on in the world, good enough. Okay. I'll come to the questions, in some time, Rashi. Right. So, next thing to look at is how to connect current affairs. So I'll take all the questions of current affairs in this segment. Right. So next part is how to connect current affairs with concepts. Okay. Um, Tell me what is the problem that most of you face when it is something related to current affairs, right? You can write down that in the chat, right? What do you feel is the problem when it comes to current affairs? Let me take those questions here itself, right? What do you think is your main issue when it comes to current affairs? Someone is saying mapping. I'll just note it down. Someone is saying retention, right? And I'll try and solve for all of these problems, right? But first, let me collect your issues. Mapping, retention. What else? What else? Note making. Very good. Note making. Yes. Summarizing. All right. Very good. Summarizing. They are bulky. Yes, they are bulky. Right. Info overload. Very good. Information overload can be one of the things that you will face. All right. And remembering data figures. Also very important for answer writing. So you will might miss reading data figures. Right. So answer writing also somewhere is saying they have a problem in answer writing after that. Anything else? Right? These are the major problems. Anything else? How many years to cover? How many sources to cover? Okay, very good. Another very common question. How many years to cover? What sources to cover? ये मत सोचना कि मेरा I've exhausted the screen so you cannot add any more points. You have to add more points, right? Not feeling complete. Not feeling complete. Can you expand that a little bit on that, Shubham? Not feeling complete. How to identify important topics. How to identify important topics. Okay, very good. What else? Yearly plus monthly magazine कौन सा पढ़ना है? Okay, yearly plus monthly. Which one to read? Right. Come on, you can ask more questions on current affairs. Some topics may be that they be left like that. Okay, you're feeling that you're not completely reading. All of these are, by the way, very common issues that everyone who's starting out will face. Right. So you're not very alone in whatever you are preparing. You might feel that you are the only one, but when you see when you've joined this webinar, now you're feeling that you're all on the same kind of preparation level. You're all facing the same kind of issues. Is it or not? Right. So those who have stayed in this session, bro, and I think most of you, all of you have stayed. So you will feel that you're going to take benefit from this and you're going to improve on this, right? All right. So someone is asking from which date or month or year to start. Again, that is also a very common question. Topic which are daily news. So how to get the important out of it? That is already we have covered. All right, Richa. Okay. So let me take all these questions together and club them into. Let's try to simplify this problem. How much to read again? How much to read is information overload. All right. So let me try and simplify this. Again, you're adding points, vocabs plus terms. How to remember that? Okay. So one of the problems that you are feeling is how to make notes from newspapers, right? So note making is very similar to summarizing things, right? And note making is also related to it being bulky, having information overload. So how will you retain? How will you write? So it also related to retention. The note making is also related to mapping because you have to map the notes to somewhere, right? Note making may you will cover data also, right? That also covers it is covered over here. Okay. Then not feeling complete again. If you're making notes only, then will you feel complete? So again, that will be the answer. Then important topics again. Important topics also will be related to your notes, right? Data will be part of notes. Vocabs and terms will be part of notes. Okay. So you see what are you left with now? You're left with sources, to read from, right? And notes will also be helping you in answer writing. So answer writing also is dependent on notes, right? So you're left with only two kinds of questions: notes and years or sources. Everything else that we will understand will come under notebook. You're seeing are you understanding how we are trying to simplify this, right? Are you able to understand how we are trying to simplify this? Yes. Okay. So it comes down to basically these two things. How do you make notes? Because notes are the ones which will help you in mapping, in retention, in understanding the difficult heavy words, in keeping with the newspaper vocabulary or the terms in news, right? And in summarizing things, all those points, all the other points, in making you feel that you are complete, right? All those points that we have covered, your notes will help. Now the problem is that you are all reading newspaper in the very wrong way, and I can 100% with surety say this: none of you are reading newspaper the right way, right? None of you are reading the newspaper the right way, right? Why is that? Why is that? Now tell me if there's any exception. Every one of you, if there's an article, suppose there's an article on antimicrobial resistance, all of you start reading from this, right? This line and end on this line. Is it correct? You start reading from here and you end at here. Is that correct? Yes. Do you do this? Yes. 100% every one of you does this, right? And that's an incorrect way of reading newspaper. Unfortunately, no one will take a class where they will teach you how to read a newspaper, right? They will just tell you you have to read a newspaper. Similarly, they will tell you you have to attempt questions. No one will tell you how to attempt questions. People will tell you you have to read this book. No one will tell you what to read, how to read that book. So, are you getting this difference? Why is approach important? Are you able to understand? And why you need to slow down a little bit? Because if you're moving so fast with everything, then you are making mistakes all the time, and we are not even realizing. And you're feeling that even after doing a lot of effort, you are not getting it, a result, right? So approach matters a lot. If you're reading newspaper like this, you're probably going to waste a lot of time, and that time is not hours, it's months and years. right? That is what you will waste, because ultimately what you are doing is you are simplifying your your mental effort, right? You're reducing your everyday effort, um, and thinking that this will be of some kind of consequence, thinking with some kind of significance. So what I'm trying to say is that reading will require some effort initially, and that effort is not everyone's cup of tea, right? But if you master that effort, right, of the first few days, first few weeks, slowly you will get comfortable with it, and then there'll come a time within a month you will be in a position when you can finish the entire newspaper in just 15-20 minutes, right? Okay. Now, why do I say that? It's very simple. Whatever problems you are facing, I'm sure you're facing it with both the magazine and the newspaper. And the solution I'm going to tell you is also for both the magazine and the newspaper. It's not a single, something I'm talking about only for the newspaper. I'm giving you an example of newspaper, but this can be very well the magazine also. And you will know a maximum of 100-120 pages monthly magazine. Definitely, you will be taking 3-4 days, right, to read that magazine. So you'll be taking a lot of time. Yes or no? Okay. What you should instead of this, what you should be doing is before before anything else, you should have basics of all the subjects in your armory, right? Basics mean at least a basic understanding of the syllabus, right? Basic understanding of the syllabus and the basic concepts of those topics should be, should be with you before you start reading any of all those things, right? Okay. Are you getting this? I'll answer all your questions. Don't worry. Right, don't worry. We still have time, so don't worry. We'll be answering all those questions. Anyway, after this point, there's one more point to discuss, and after that, I'll take all the questions. Okay, so don't worry if you have any questions. But what I'm trying to say is, if you have the basics and then you go for newspaper reading, then what should you do? And that this is not the part that you are doing wrong. First you should know the basics and then you should read the newspaper. Maybe some of you already have the basics. So what is the part that you are all doing wrong? You're not pausing, right? That's why when in the beginning of the lecture, when someone asked me to go a little fast, no, I was a little harsh on them. And I have to be as a teacher, because if you are not able to understand the pace that this exam requires, right? If you're hell bent on moving fast, then you are going to, you know, uh, going to do what? Climb from the mountain, right? You have to climb the mountain up and you have to reach the peak, right? You don't have to be fast so that you fall off. Getting it? So once you have the understanding of these basic papers, then what should you do in the newspaper or the magazines? Suppose there's a heading on antimicrobial resistance. Suppose there's a heading on antimicrobial resistance, right? Antimicrobial resistance. Now, this is something that will be there in your notes. Something that will be there in your notes. Now, what should you do? Don't jump to the article. Suppose the heading says antimicrobial resistance causes 6 million deaths every year. A cause for concern. A cause for concern. That's what the heading says in the editorial, right? Now, you read the heading, right? You know the topic. Now, you should not be reading the article before applying your own brain. So, what should you think? First of all, you should think whatever is there in your notes, in the basic notes, right? So, what are you doing? This is revision. Shubham, this is revision, right? Revision is not boring, it's not heavy if you're doing it every day in a structured manner. Right. So what is happening? You're trying to you're trying to recall whatever you know about antimicrobial resistance. So you try to recall, okay, I know what is antimicrobial resistance. It is the ability of microorganisms to develop immunity against certain drugs. Okay, so I know the definition. Now let me recall one more thing. I know the cause for antimicrobial resistance, the cause for AMR. Okay, let me think. All right, I know the overdose of antibiotics is one reason. Then maybe whether it's given to humans or animals, that is one reason that I can recall from the notes. Now, what else? Maybe unhygienic conditions are another. Maybe there is some kind of hospital infrastructure that is a cause that is leading to AMR. Okay, and I don't remember any other point. Okay, that is the only thing that I remember. Okay, then let me remember the government initiatives. So, okay, I'm not able to recall any government initiative. Now, your brain understands that you have only this much of information. You know the definition, and you know certain kind of causes. But the moment you start thinking about schemes, you know, oh, I don't know. So what will you do? You will instantly go back and look at your notes, right? I'm saying you don't have to go do even that because that can be inconvenient, right? You have newspapers and you have to keep several books around. So आप हर एक book खोल के देखोगे तो नहीं, right? That I also know. You will not do that, and you don't need to do that. But at least you have this at the back of your mind that you don't remember the government scheme related to AMR, but you know the concept and you know the causes, and some of the causes you have to read again. Right. And then the challenges, when you think about challenges, okay, then you're not able to think about the challenges. Okay. So what have you done? You have done 2 minutes of mental gymnastics, right? 2 minutes of this mental gym to make you ready for reading this article. Now, what will you do? When you're reading this article will mention on its own certain schemes of the government. This article will also mention what is AMR. It will also mention the causes for AMR and it will also mention the challenges. My dear friends, that's exactly what is required for the exam, nothing else. Right. So if you are reading this article, right, once, then you're covering all these topics. Now imagine the next time an article on AMR comes, right? You already know all these things, already know all these 4 points, right? So then you would not need to go through the whole article. You would really not require yourself to be reading the entire article. And this is a difficult thing to do, right? I'll just say it very honestly, it is a difficult thing to do because no one really wants to stop and think. It's a pain. It's an effort that you have to make mentally, and no one wants to make an mental effort. People want to feel like they are working hard. They don't actually want to work hard, right? Everyone wants to feel like working hard so that they can avoid the guilt of actually working hard, right? That's the difference that a UPSC serious UPSC aspirant will have, that they'll actually be working hard. All right. So if you know these 4 points, now you know everything about AMR. It's a very significant topic in health in your syllabus. Now the next time this article comes, you're already an expert. And not only this, you'll be reading 4 or 5 articles a day. So what you are trying to do every day, initially, is become an expert at every topic that you are reading. And within a month or two, you'll be so much of an expert in all the topics, and you will find that newspapers actually repeat everything. So your newspapers become a source of revision. Remember minimum sources? This one source, there's one source of newspaper, and it's becoming a tool for revising things. So every day, anyway, you have reading newspapers. Any day you every day you have to read newspapers anyway, whether you like it or not. But what have you made productive about it? That your newspapers itself have become a tool for you to revise so hard that you are well versed with every concept along with the uh, along with the news items. Right? Are you understanding how you connect current affairs and concepts? That is the question we are answering, right? That is the question we are answering. Are you able to understand whether it's the newspaper or the magazines? It's the same thing. All right. I'll I have a pause once again for you to think on any more questions that are left unanswered. Now, if you think about the sources I've already mentioned, right? Still, some people ask that. So anyway, that's an important question. Yearly or monthly magazines? I've already mentioned monthly magazines. I've already mentioned newspapers. From which month to which month? Definitely, the last 1 year is extremely important. Before that, not so much important. So if you're writing the exam next year, if you're starting out today in April, next year the exam is in May. So April 26 to May 27, that much current affairs is enough for you. Okay. So I'll just have a little pause for you to think of any more questions that are left unanswered from whatever we started the discussion with. From these are your questions that are being answered from this. So are you able to understand any difference? I'll come to the role of NCRTs. There are a couple of questions on NCRTs that I've kept on hold. Right. So I'll come to that. Don't worry. Yeah, I'll come to the personal questions also. Okay. So Shivam, Madela, Shreyansh, Yashi, and uh, I think Rashi also is someone who's word asked. Right. So I'll come to these personal questions and the NCRT questions. First of all, let's be clear on current affairs. Are we clear on current affairs? So we have discussed three things till now: approach, right? Which areas does UPSC focus on frequently, and current affairs. Are we clear on these three things? Any questions on these three things? We'll come to the NCRT part later on and the personal questions later on. Anything apart from that? Are we good to go? Yes. Giving you time to think. Right. So this is the place where most of the aspirants they will make a mistake. And a lot of these things we try and refine in our essentials course also. Right. All right. So I'm hoping that it's clear. Yes, Richa is asking if sir, one more question. If I'm covering newspapers daily, so should I also go? Yes. That's why I said three sources, right? Your notes which are the basic concepts notes. Then second thing is current affairs from newspapers. Then the third thing is from the monthly magazines. Which article to pick and which not to pick is very simple. You just have to read the syllabus, right? Read the syllabus and you will understand. Okay. Now coming to how to make notes from this. So what happens is you already have AMR notes. So what you should do is suppose this is your note making copy. So you should write only on one side. You should leave the other side blank. Keep this side blank. Okay. So you have your notes, handwritten notes. Always have your handwritten or printed notes. Hard copy. Hard copy of notes you should have. Or if you want a digital copy, that's up to you. I prefer a hard copy. If you have a hard copy, keep one side blank. So that if you are reading AMR, suppose there's a data 6 million deaths that you read that was not there in your notes. You write that data in your notes. Close to AMR, wherever the topic of AMR is mentioned. That's how you should make notes. You should have room enough in your notebooks. You should have room enough in your notebooks for any current affairs to be added. If you don't have that, you will have difficult time revising anything, right? Because everything will be at multiple locations. Condense everything at one location. How will you do that? By leaving spaces. Whatever notes you have, just keep sure that you are leaving pages where current affairs can later on be added. That will help in revision also. And that is exactly what note making will be helpful for. Right? So now you can plan your own ways. In what way do you want to do? If you're reading a newspaper, do you want to make notes alongside? Right? And notes should be just one or two pointers about things. They should not be paragraphs. One or two pointers about things. Okay? Now you can just think on how do you want to do this. And that can be your own way. Whether you want to write things on phone. I used to have an app where I could write, I could write these notes on my phone, and it was easier for me to search, right? I could just search AMR and I would get everything related to AMR in a single place, right? That was my way of doing it. what can be your way of doing it? You can just think on that. If you want to make it digitally, make it digitally. Right? That would also help. Right. So you have to think on what's going to be the best way for you to do it. Whether you want to do it every day or whether you want to compile it at one place and then later on put it in one time in your notebooks. Okay. Someone is asking, can we do some notes on magazine also? Monthly magazine. Definitely you can do. But what happens is magazine is very wordy, right? So when you are revising, you have this tendency, because there are so many words, you have this tendency to have a FOMO of missing a word or missing a concept. So if your notes have a lot of words, keep that in mind. If your notes have a lot of words, this is what is important about note making. If it's very bulky, revision becomes very heavy. If notes are simple, crisp, revision becomes simple. I hope, Shubham, I am able to come back to your question immediately on revision being heavy. Right. So if your notes are simple, you will be able to revise things very easily. If you're writing paragraphs in your notes, really no point in revising also. That's what you will feel like. Right. You want to make your work simpler, your life simpler, not complex, not complicated, right? Okay. So have I answered everything to related to current affairs now? I hope I have answered everything related to this. Okay, then let's come to the next one. How to avoid overstudy. This is where I'll take the part of NCRTs. Okay. So I'll just, write down all the questions on the board. Role of NCRT, someone had asked, role of NCRT. Okay. Someone had asked also, someone related to, question related to this is, someone wants to give the exam in 2030. Someone wants to give the exam in 2027, 28. There are various types of people, right? So what is the strategy for them? Then, what about the NCRTs and what else? Lakshmikant Spectrum and Themes NCRT for Chankara is for environment is done. Can you move to PYQs and other writing? Yes, if your basics are done, then you can move to PYQs, right? So, 11th and 12th NCRTs, if they are done, can we move to? Question is, if they are done, can we move to PYQs and answer writing? Anything else related to overstudying or NCRT that you want to put in the list? Yes. Anything that comes to your mind or any point that I've missed? Yes. Anything that you feel you want to add to this list regarding overstudying, how to select the NCRTs? Okay, that is the, which NCRTs, role of NCRT में आ जाएगा. Yes. Okay, what else? How many times to revise? Okay, how much revision is not overstudying? So how much revision is optimal? What else? So, if you keep writing your questions, just to make you understand one thing, all of you come from different backgrounds, right? You have had different upbringing, right? Any of one of you can come to me and say with 100% surety that you will agree that all of you are different in terms of your upbringing, in terms of your moods, in terms of how you deal with people, in terms of your likes, your dislikes, right? No one will be the same. And if that is the case, then do you think there is a one size fit all strategy? There is some strategy that is going to work for everyone. That's an important part to answer this question, how to avoid overstudy, right? That's an important part. Someone is asking keywords. I'll just keep writing questions also alongside. Yes, yes, you are saying no to what? Right. So because all of you are different, all of you should have the individual tailored strategy for your likes and dislikes. Okay. To your likes and dislikes. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you want to read using a paper and a pen, you should do that. If you want to watch videos, you should do that. If you want to look at beautiful pictures, like this is the picture of H1N1 virus, right? To make you remember things, you should do that. This is a picture of a material, right? This is a picture of nanomaterials. If you feel this is useful, you should do that, right? If you feel that you want to tell someone a concept in order to be able to retain it, then you should do that. Basically, you should do a trial and error experiment to understand which is the best way in which you will be retaining things. Will it be by simply reading? Will it be simply by uh, listening to the podcasts, recordings? You have to find your way. And I cannot tell you because I don't know you personally, and your life is different. So you have your own likes and dislikes. So only you can tell yourself. I'll give you an example. I can say for myself, I hate reading. Right, I don't like to read a lot. Right, I like to watch videos. I like to watch documentaries. I watch a lot of videos. I watch a lot of documentaries. Right, and I read minimally, only the amount that is required. I don't like to read a lot. Right. If I pick up a book, I take months to finish it. That's me, right? And you can be having your own way of doing things. I like to make digital notes. If I have to make note of something, I'll make it on my phone so that I can refer to it later. That's my convenience. Right? That's the way I like to do it. And that those are things that I have found about found about by doing a trial and error. Because if I write, I know if I write something else, something on paper somewhere, I'll not be able to, get hold of it. It will just lie somewhere around, right? If I get print of something, I'll not be able to really follow, right? There's something that I got a printout of a month or two ago, and it's still kept in my bag, right? So I know I have this kind of liking and disliking. So I should if if you were to ask me, I would do things this way. But should you do it this way is the question that you have to answer on your own, right? I cannot say that making notes on paper is bad, making notes uh, on an app is bad, right? That you have to read 50 books. Okay. So all these are questions that you have to answer. These are personal questions, right? So when you look at the strategy, overall strategy, when we talk about overstudying, and when we look at the overall strategy, it comes down to two things. One is personal strategy, and one is the general strategy, right? Personal is what will work only for you and for no one else. And general is what will generally work for everyone. And what will generally work for everyone is something that I have told you in this session, right? Except the part for NCRTs, because I'll share the names of chapters that you can refer to. Those are the chapters that are going to be relevant for your UPSC preparation. So I'll share that list on the chat. Right, so anyone who wants to go and look at the list of chapters, which class wise, class says कि ये chapters important है, 11th के ये important है, you can refer to that list and you will be able to know. Right, but that's just a reference, right? By reading those chapters, you're not getting a guarantee of solving any question in the exam. So no way that you can read those chapters and you can say that you have covered everything for science and tech. No, that's not the case. Or you have covered all the concepts. Also, that's not the case. Those are just reference points. If you want, so if you're someone who wants to understand things from NCRTs, For those people, I will share this. But if you're someone who will not be able to understand things by reading, then for them it's a waste of time, but they will still be going on reading that chapter. This is where this personal strategy comes in. So general strategy is something that I've told you. Personal strategy is something that you have to find out on your own. Right? So there's some question that you are leaving you with, right? And whether you are starting your preparation in 2030, 27 to 28 doesn't really matter. All these things, they remain the same for you. So if there's a specific question regarding the year, then I can understand that. But from the question that you have asked, it's the same strategy for everyone. So I cannot say that for you it's going to be slightly difficult. It's going to be the same thing, followed year after year. Got it? Okay. So how to remember keywords? Again, the keywords come to the same thing. When you are reading NCERT, you will be reading the concepts. Okay. Question: how to revise? We have discussed extensively on how to revise, right? That question, think about newspaper and monthly magazines. To whoever has asked this question, when we discussed on the newspapers and the monthly magazines part, we touched upon how to revise. Okay. So how do you avoid overstudying? By using the personal strategy. When you are having some kind of personal strategy, then you will not overstudy, right? Then you will not be reading 50 NCERTs because you know you don't want to read 50 NCERTs. You want to score marks in the exam because if marks will make you an IAS, then you have to focus on getting marks. How can you get more marks? Right? And it's not by overstudying. Overstudying cannot give you marks. What will give you marks is the right approach, which is the combination of general approach and a personal approach. So all the toppers, that when they say that they're giving you a general approach, they give you that with a touch of salt, that they say that okay, this worked for me, but may not work for you. Okay, all of them will say this. All right. So I hope I'm able to make this clear to you. Um, I'll just share the list of NCRT chapters because most of you will definitely ask that. You'll not believe me without getting some some chapter to read from NCRT. You will not believe in me. So I'll share it. What can I do? Right? In these strategy sessions, there are very few people who come to listen to the strategies. Most people come to listen to validation. Most people come for validation that what they are doing is right and that needs to be validated. Right? That is the understanding. And right, and I like to mention this directly because that is what I think is the case with most of the people. Yeah. But because I am a teacher, I have to be like this to tell you what is right and what is not. So I've shared on the chat the list of all the important concepts. Okay. So have you received this list? Yes. The important chapters in NCRT, right? So that's mostly about our discussion. I've covered all the four pillars of our discussion today, which is the approach, the areas that UPSC focuses on, how do we connect these current affairs and concepts, and how to avoid overstudy, right? So is there anything that I have left unanswered? You can ask me right now, right? I'll be here for you. So you can ask me anything that you have left right now, and you can also tell me how did you like the session, right? You can go on the YouTube channel and comment on the post, right? I'll also share the link for the post, and you can comment how did you like the session and whether you will be joining our course. Okay. Yes. Anything else that anyone has to ask? In order to write answers, what all should we keep in mind? I'll just give you simple funda of answer writing. In a minute, I'll just share the link so you can go and write any kinds of feedbacks over there. Just see if you can open this link. I hope you can open this link. If you can open this link, just try and you can if you can mention on that link whether you liked the session or not, and how did you want to give a feedback on this. Right now, I can just answer some of the more questions that are being asked by one of my students who is also here, Chadanya. He's asking, in order to write answers, what all should we keep in mind? Priorly. Okay. So again, in mains, extensive discussions for mains answer writing. We can, it's another matter for half an hour, 45 minutes, where we discuss extensively on how to write good answers. To give you a simple funda, there needs to be introduction, right? Body and a conclusion. So your answer has a structure instantly when you look at it from these three parts, right? So whenever you're looking at the question, think about these three parts. What can we write? What can we write in the introduction, but in the body and the conclusion? The body has to be structured, right? It has to be structured. There has to be heading, certain points to it, heading, points to it. It has to be like this, right? Introduction and conclusion should be 2-3 lines at most. So this is something that you should keep in mind whenever you are writing answers. This should come to your mind first. How can I introduce this topic in 3 lines? Suppose it's define AI. Now you will write artificial intelligence is the ability of machines to work on cognitive tasks like thinking, reasoning, adapting, and understanding. You have written this and you are feeling that you have nailed the exact definition that they were asking. But what you have missed is an example. You have missed the life, adding life. How do you add life to your answers? By giving examples, by writing data. So example क्या होगा AI का? Computer playing chess. That's AI, right? By giving examples, data, by writing case laws, right? In your papers. This is case law is for quality most of the times, but for others, if you're writing examples, your data, then you are adding life to your answers. Then you are showing the examiner that you are not only reading the concepts, you're also reading the newspaper. Okay. So Shreyansh is saying I'll try to read all the important NCERTs and books. Kajal is asking any important advice on for an art student as the scientific words are difficult to understand. So nothing that important. Only thing is that is required is that you might have to work a little hard on the basics. Get familiarity with the basics, right? Familiarity will come when you are reading every day those topics every day, right? In the newspapers, you are making sure that you're reading a science article uh, when you have your notes. You're making sure that you're at least once a week, twice in a week, you are revising that. That will make you familiar. Any doubt you have today, so you have chat GPT, you can just ask, I don't understand this concept, and it will instantly tell you, right? So, and you can even say things like explain this like a 5-year-old baby, right? So it will help you understand things from that perspective also. If someone is asking physics part of NCERT is not important, yes, it's not important. Madela is saying, sir, I can join your course from June since it started in March. Yes, you can join the course from June, no problem. You can cover the missed portion since you are appearing next year. You can easily cover the missed portion, and you can continue with the batch. All right. All right. Anything that I missed? Kajal, have I answered your question? Anything else that I missed that you want to be what you want to get an answer to in this session? Yes, Chaitanya. Like SDGs. and articles. Yes, that's also something that will help you improve the answers. Should I be making notes on newspaper articles? Yes, you should be making, like we discussed, right? By adding things to your notes only. When you have your notes, in those notes only itself, you should add. What should you add in those notes? You should add the relevant item from the newspaper. What are the relevant items that you will add? Examples, data points, right? Judgments, if you want, if you're adding polity examples, then it should be case laws. But let's not talk about case laws. It's not for polity. So for science and tech in specific, you should be adding examples or data points or some kind of government schemes. Suppose you read about AMR, then you came to know, okay, there is some kind of AMR declaration. Okay, so let me write that in my notes. I haven't written about the AMR declaration. It will be relevant for me in the exam. Let me write it down. Right. And do you know how this will improve? Right. Remember, go back to the first three. Minimum sources, maximum revision, and practice. So when you're practicing MCQs and writing answers, right, what will happen as a result of this is you will understand which example is going to be important for you because you got stuck in that example or at that data point. So you will know what needs to be added. So next time when you're reading the newspaper, you're getting that from the newspaper, right? So what will happen? You have created a system where you are making a mistake, right? You're making a mistake, right? Like in your MCQ and answer writing, you're making a mistake. Then you're going to the newspaper or the magazine and getting to learn it. Then again, you are writing your MCQ and answer. Then again, you are getting understanding that okay, you made a mistake in this. Then again, you are going to the newspapers and current affairs, and then again, you are going to the practice, right? So you have created a cycle, right? This virtuous cycle where you will continuously improve your preparation. Most people don't create this cycle at all because they completely miss the MCQ part. They keep on reading only the newspaper and current affairs. This cycle is not created. When this cycle is not created, there is no feedback. So it is a general everyday struggle of reading newspapers, which does not lead to anywhere. Okay, does not lead to anywhere. Um, okay, so someone is asking, my BTech will be completed by May. I am planning to start my verification from June. Is the timeline sufficient? Yes, it's sufficient. 1 year is sufficient enough to crack UPSC. In answer writing, someone is asking how to link them with current affairs. Yeah, that's the part which I discussed that's just right now. Okay, you have to be reading your notes, and from that, when you're writing the answers, definitely from your notes, you will have some kind of examples or data point that you will be putting in the answers. Sir, is 1 year enough for covering all the syllabus? Yes, it's enough. And 1 year is enough for clearing the exam. Don't worry. People take time because of other reasons. 1 year is more than enough. All right. Okay. All right then. Anything else? Anything else you want to ask? Did I answer it, Shubham, for you? Shivam? Anything else that you want to get an answer to? Or are we all good? Yes? Are we good? All right. Um, then thank you so much for being a kind audience, right? And being patient and listening to all those uh, topics that we were talking about and being very nice and patient and you have that skill in you and you have that capability and for that I salute you for preparing like this and keep making your best efforts and I'll see you next time whenever you join the course. All right. Thank you so much.